Automation Manager is a new feature added in the Spring 17 release. In order to see Automation Manager, you need to go to your administration page. And you can see underneath the Manager header, it's down at the bottom. If you don't see it, you need to go to Role Administration and turn it on during your security settings. What can Automation Manager do? It allows you to create your own personal emails, so it allows you to notify. You can create and edit records, verify that fields are populated or have certain specific values, and also calculate fields out. What this does is, like I said, it allows you to create custom notifications, implement your own workflows into things so you guys don't have to click as many buttons. And then also it allows you to have bulk edit functionalities. Going into Automation Manager, you'll see your first layout, as in you can see that there's a search bar for all automations that you already have created. There's a view log button that shows you what automations were kicked off, when they were kicked off, if they were completed or failed, and what the errors were. Below, you can see on the list of automations that are already created, the toggle to turn them off or on. There's 3 little dots that you can view a log specific for that actual automation and also delete the automation. There's also the Create Automation button. Then when you select it, you get a list of triggers to actually choose from. Now, triggers have 3 different types. There's event-based, scheduled, and manual. Event-based has to have something kick it off. An event has to happen in order for the automation to actually run. Scheduled has set up times and dates in order to run. In manual, you'll click the button yourself and it'll go ahead and run automatically. If you search for a trigger, I can say task, and then I get a bunch of task-oriented triggers here. And I'm actually going to choose one of create or edit records after a task is created or edited. That is event-based trigger. You can name your automation up here. And please be specific when you name your automations. That way they don't get lost in the jumble of all your other ones and have the same names as others. You can see that there's a toggle to turn on the top and also a save and close option. If you select a trigger, you will also see that you can use an extended trigger. You can make an if statement on the side that actually makes the trigger longer. So the automation won't kick off unless the entire automation and the entire trigger and extended trigger is actually filled out. Then you have your blocks over here to the left. These are actually what cause automations, what the actions are, and what your automations will actually do. So I'll go ahead and explain these blocks here. The top 3 are notify blocks. They are sending emails. They're all generic and the same, except for who they go to. In your send email, you get to pick which role or user it goes to, where send email to assignments goes out to the assignments of the task or the requesters of a request. If you click and drag, that's how you get the blocks over to the actions. And you can see more options pop up to the right. At the top of every single option, you will always have the title for the block. You can always change that. You can see it changes over here as well. So you can be specific with your blocks, that way you know which block does what. In this case, like I said, you get to choose the role or user that it gets sent to, the subject of the email, the message of the email. Then you can also choose a record source. In this case, trigger record is the only one we have. And that is this task that actually triggered the automation. And you can select its activity, its task ID, things like that to actually be included inside the email as well. In order to delete a block, you can simply highlight over it and click the X. I'll drag over the assignments and the requesters one just so you can see that everything is the same except for the 2. The 2 is auto-populated to be requesters or assignments. Next is create task. Self-explanatory, like a lot of the blocks. You know what this does. It's going to create a task. There's your block title, your asset type of the task that you're going to create, the asset ID, its activity, and its start and stop date. You can also add labor here at the bottom for the assignments. You'll see that there's a D and a link, and those 2 are different. Or the D defaults. I can sit here and pick which asset type I want from the default list of asset types. If I click on them, I can switch to link, which means it's going to link it to a different field. So asset type of the trigger record So whatever the asset type of this task is now the asset type of this new task. Activity, start and stop. This, I always have to pick a field to be able to judge off of. You can always pick today. You can pick things from the task up here, the trigger record task. You can see it's italicized there. And also, guys, there's an option to add fields, so you can even be more specific with things. You can give it a city. You can actually put due dates in, things like that. So if you have required fields in order to create a task, you will need to add them in here. That way, so when the task is created, it does have those required fields. A create record. It's kind of the basic thing as a create a task, only it's creating a record. In this case, you can create assets, you can create task assignments, and things like that. So you can choose, I want to create an athletic space, and then I get to choose which fields I want to populate out off of that asset. Set fields and save record. These usually go hand in hand along with some of these down here that are be support that we'll talk about in a minute. So what a set fields does, a save record does. Set fields actually updates or changes values to a task, to an asset, to any kind of record that you have. And then a save record will actually save those changes for you. As you can see, set fields, in this case, set fields can only be used on information above it, so before it. So in this case, we only have this trigger task to set a field for. So when we choose record source, there's your trigger record. We can say I want to set the address number, and I want to link it. I can link it to those, the same field quantities. I can say default. I can type in an address number of 675, and then I can say save record, and then save it, and tell it what to save. So these go hand in hand. Every time you set a field, you're going to need to do a save record, just for the fact that if you're not actually pushing save for the automation, then you can set a field, but then the save will never actually go through and your record will never actually be updated. Error message displays an error message, that little red dialog box that pops up on your screen when something can't happen. You can change the block title right here, and then there's your message. You can type whatever you want in there. A lot of times people use error message to validate fields to say, hey, you can't leave this can't be null. You can't leave this blank. So if this is blank when you try to complete a task, then pop up this error message. Update record. What this does is it actually goes and grabs an associated record with something above it. So in this case, our associated records task could be the activities, the different types of assets, maybe some labor, things like that. So I can say, I want to grab the pump station that is associated with this task and change something on it. I want to change its city to Carroll Stream. What that'll do is it'll go to this pump station that's associated with this task, change its city to Carroll Stream, and save it. You don't need to use the save record with an update because it is built in. These last four are actually support blocks, which means you can't use them alone. They have no actions to them. They're supports. So if I use get record, what that does is it actually goes and gets the record and stores it for you. It does pretty much the same as the update, except for the fact where it's not actually making any changes. It just goes and retrieves that associated record. So I can say, go grab the ADA ramp that's associated with this task. And now all of the ADA ramps information is stored here that we can use later on. Aggregate has count, sum, min, max, and average functionality. So you can say count a specific record set if the formula is true. So I can say count all athletic spaces with the city being Carroll Stream. That's what the aggregate function does. You can say count, you can do a sum of all the labor hours for a task, things like that. If is just a longer if block. So you can say if department is administration, then I want to create a task. See how the block grows because the create task is underneath it. So if this is true, then do this. And then you have your loop records. This kind of works the same as an if, except it's actually going to go and grab records. So in this case, I want to go grab every single ADA ramp that is the city of Dubuque. So that goes and grabs every single ADA ramp, and then maybe I want to go ahead and set the field of what? The loop records to have the county. Looks like we don't have any counties. I'm going to go ahead and say record source of loop records. So set the 88 ramps with a new width of 10 feet. And then I can say save record. And what am I saving? I'm saving my loop records. So in this case, loop through all the 88 ramps with the city of Dubuque, change their width to 10 feet, and save the records. At the top, guys, remember, you can always hit save, turn the automation on or off, delete, close. If I delete, it's always going to ask me. I can say okay, and it'll take me back to the automation manager first screen where you can create your own.